Hello, my name's Stephen Edwards and I'm Technical Support Manager for the UK and Ireland within KENWOOD, and I am going to run you through how KENWOOD's new location system works, Trackuracy. It's working with radios, beacons, and PCs, fixed mobiles, and phones. Full-time dispatchers are far less common these days, so Trackuracy is designed to work with a full-time dispatcher if you have one, but more normally it will work with other devices such as phones, tablets, and other devices that are portable. What this does is it allows users to have access to the data as well as voice. So if you want to know where someone is, you can look on your smartphone and you can see them. Access to this can be controlled by username and password, but more normally, that would be something which would be useful to most companies. The idea is here that if you're distributing location information, a manager is able to see what's going on, see who's doing their jobs, and hopefully even from location and seeing where someone has been, able to work out that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. This gives us an addition to a radio system. A radio system is generally an all-informed system where everybody hears everything, or everyone within a subgroup hears everything. And this allows you to also add data to that in the form of location services. Because we're using beacons and GPS, it's not just within a building, it is external as well. Technology gives us opportunities and challenges. One of the challenges for a location system is that GPS does not work inside a building. A number of solutions have come up over the years to make this work, but it's really problematic. However, simple little Bluetooth beacons like this one here work incredibly well. And with the NX3000 series with inbuilt Bluetooth, low power Bluetooth, that will connect to the beacons and allow you to use these low cost iBeacons throughout the whole of your environment. So whether you've got a factory with a factory floor or whether you've got offices, you are easily put a number of beacons in, and as the radio approaches the beacon, it will be registered on the beacon, and as it leaves, it will depart. When you move outside, GPS takes over. The user requirement for indoor location systems are mainly to be able to find people quickly and easily, but also to know where people have been, to be able to track them. And I think most importantly is when someone pushes the emergency button on the radio or the radio goes into a man down function, that you know exactly where that user is, or if not exactly where he is, you know relatively closely where he will be. And I say not exactly because obviously with the beacon system, that user may not be currently in a beacon area. They may be between areas, but it will give you a very small search area and very easy to find them, all being well. Obviously the opportunity is there to add more and more beacons, although possibly to get every part of a factory covered would be difficult. Typically you don't. You just cover the places where you can identify where someone will be. The important thing to remember with a beacon system is it sits on top of the radio scheme. So you have the radio and everything that goes with it, and as and when you need to know more information, you would then use a PC, phone, or some other device to understand exactly where someone is and where they have been. But it doesn't detract from the core, highly reliable radio system. Trackuracy has levels. Level 1, the resolution's about 10 meters, and that is a beacon. So as you move around, you move from beacon to beacon. With level 2, the resolution's about 2 meters, and it's using 2D tracking. So what that gets you is a location in space. Level 3, the resolution's about 20 centimeters or better, but that's currently under development. During this presentation, we're talking about Trackuracy Level 1 and Level 1 with Jetstream. And Jetstream is the edge relay technology that allows you to send messages over IP. For Trackuracy, we have chosen iBeacons, which are a industry standard beacon. They're available in lots of different packages, but this is the one that it's offered with and does work very, very well because it's IP67, very small, couple of batteries inside. Batteries will last 2 years or more. but it allows you to have a maintenance period of 1 year where the batteries are changed out. The radios we're using are the NX3000, and this will work happily on NXDN, DMR or trunking. So making full advantage of the radio's capabilities, and this is using the radio as a bearer regardless of radio technology. We also have a server piece of software, which in this case is running on this laptop. The server would more normally run on a server grade machine, but will equally well run on a desktop, a laptop or anything. It's not a high impact application. And the best thing to do with it is to fit with what the user requires. And if they want a simpler system with just a desktop, then that's fine. If, however, they want the security of putting this into a server room and hiding everything away, then you can equally well do that. And that is down to the installation. In this example, we have a portable radio, some beacons, and a fixed mobile here. Now, the beacon communicates with the radio and allows it to have its location information stored within the radio. This is then transported to the fixed mobile here, and from the fixed mobile that connects into the PC, and the PC is running the server application. The server application also has a web server in it, and that web server will then feed to phones, tablets or any other devices, multiple PCs if you have them, but it allows the data to be distributed easily. You can see in the diagram that we have now gained a couple of edge relays. Now those edge relays are actually transporting the data. So the way that this works is the radio communicates with a beacon and establishes exactly where it is. It then takes that data and communicates that using Bluetooth to the edge relay. The edge relay then carries that to the Trackuracy server. Now, what that means practically is in a level 1 system, your limitation to how many radios and how many beacons you can have is determined by the radio scheme itself, how much data you can push through that. When you move to level 1 with Jetstream, that is no longer the limit, because now you're using the customer's IT network, their Wi-Fi, their LAN, whatever the bearer is, to carry that information. So you can now carry thousands and thousands of messages with no impact whatsoever on the radio scheme. We've talked a lot about iBeacons and how they work and how they communicate with the radio. What we haven't done is gone into how the iBeacon itself is configured. Now, there is nothing to configure within the iBeacon. There's 4 screws on it, and you can take the back off and change the battery when they run out. What you can do to configure them is a simple iPhone or other smartphone application, and this will quite simply allow you to see all of the beacons that are available. Now, the iBeacon and the configuration utilities are slightly different in as much that they're using different protocols. And what that means is if you set the iBeacon up for a range of, say, 0.5 meter, and you go in here, you can still see all of your beacons and then easily select that because that's a different protocol and you've got a much greater range. So from here, I can select the particular iBeacon that I wish to configure. A password pops up and I enter the password, and typically the password would be common amongst all beacons for this system. It will then load and I can switch simply to iBeacon configuration, and I have 3 different parameters. So I have the transmit power, the acceptable receive power, and the frequency that the beacon operates. And those are very easily adjustable with sliders. And with that, and the fact that the radio has a debug mode, which we'll show you later, you are able to configure beacons and set the system up very quickly and easily. So you can set this up in the workshop, or you can set this up when you get to site. Setting the beacon level is only half the story. The radio is communicating with the beacon, so although we're setting the beacon's power and receive levels, we also need to know what's arriving at the radio. And in order to do that, the radio has got a debug mode, and basically you can push a button on the radio and This would not normally be in the distributed radios, but in the radios that you're using for setting up. You then see the beacon that it's connected to, you see the beacon IDs, and you also see the signal strength. And the beauty of this is that with the beacon configuration with your phone, you're just going to wander around, and all you actually need is a phone to set the beacon levels and a radio to make sure that the level is correct for the area that you're going. So walking around with this, you adjust the level to get the beacon to be displayed on here. When the beacon is lost, it will drop back and display GPS location, so you know that that's fallen away. And you slowly move around the area to be covered, ensuring that all of it is covered. And as long as it's held on the display, then you're fine. You may need to move away and back to find the actual sweet spot where coverage is lost, because the radio does have hysteresis in the same way that all radio RF bearers have hysteresis. But it is very easy to get that coverage exactly where you want it to be. And the other thing you can do is obviously move beacons around if you find the coverage is not fitting what you require. Beacon placement is something to be quite careful about, because obviously you need to know where a beacon's going to be and where someone is going to cross that beacon. If you have a door, then you can place a beacon by a door. What it will not tell you is whether someone has gone through the door, out of the building or into the building. You need to have two beacons to do that. So you need to have one by the outside of the door and then one in maybe the corridor inside, so you know that they've moved inside of the building. One of the classic ones that you're going to miss if you're not careful is people going out and standing by a beacon, having a cigarette and then returning inside the building, because they have not left the building, they've always been there. If you want to cover just a room, then that's easily done, and that can be placed in the middle of the room and will then have full coverage. Beacons are using very high frequency. This is 2.5 gigahertz. Therefore, it does not travel well through walls. This works well with beacons because you don't want the beacon coverage to leak outside of the room. If that was the case, you could find that you were looking in the wrong room when you went to search for someone, and actually they're in an adjacent room. So the level of RF power from the beacon is kept as low as possible just to cover the room, so there is no leakage. If you've got solid walls, it won't leak anyway. If you've got partition walls, it may get a little bit of leakage, so that's something to be careful of. Generally, a combination of covering rooms and covering corridors is all that's needed. And I've now left the workshop, and in fact, I have now walked into the next area. So this whole area here is covered by one beacon, which is covering the main entrance for 3 roller shutter doors and a small manned door. And the beacon has been fitted just here, and that allows this whole area to be covered. And what that will result in is, as someone walks through any of these doors, they will be caught on their radio. As they then move into the building itself, they will be caught by further beacons down this hallway, and we will be sure to know exactly where they are heading, although we may not know exactly where they are as they transition down through the beacons. Now we've set up the beacons outside, it's really what do we do with that information? And the simplest form is that information will be displayed on a map, but also it can be used for email notifications. And as you can see from the screen here, the email configuration is very simple and straightforward and allows you to generate emails which will go out when an event occurs or on a timed regular basis. A number of alerts can be generated directly, and you can see that there are a large number of predetermined alerts that are just there. You can then decide whether those alerts are actually going out as emails or whether they are just written to disk and inspected by you at some later date. But I think the email is the best way. So therefore, every time something happens out of the ordinary on the system, an email arrives to whoever requires that, and you can then see what's happened on the system. The system will generate lots of different reports, and these can go to a hard disk or they can go out as an email. And I think it's best if they go as an email. And therefore, when something occurs on the system, or just a summary of what the system is being done will arrive in various people's inbox. And that way you can keep an eye on the system and the users very easily. As we're going through setting up the server, one of the other things that you can do is you can have a backup server. So you have a primary server and a secondary server. And this means that if the PC, which are inherently less reliable than radio systems, was to fail, a second server will take over and you will not lose tracking capabilities. Now we've got the beacons in place and the hardware organised, it's time to look at the PC and see exactly what track accuracy gives you. Now, as we look at the PC, this is exactly the same as you would get on a tablet or on your phone. It is exactly the same screen. It may be crushed or moved around for the smaller device, but you're seeing exactly the same thing with exactly the same capabilities. So looking at the screen, the first thing you have to do is log in. And if we just log in there, track accuracy loads. And you can see on the screen, we have now got a map with a number of radios in the center of it. And you can see that our 4 radios are all within a similar area. If we zoom into that area, we can actually see that we have a building mapping here, and we can see various parts throughout that building and where the radios currently are. If I zoom back out a little bit, then what we can also do is move the map off to one side. And with the map off to one side, we will show in a minute exactly what the advantage that has. So with radio 1 here, I can see that with that radio, I can send it a GPS request. And that GPS request is now going out. And then we hear a little chirp to say that that was successful. And that has now plotted. And that will either be a GPS location or a beacon, whichever it's nearest to. I can also, for instance, with radio 3, I might want to send a text message. So as simple as that. And I can just type in something. So hi, and push send. And you can hear the radio's gone peep, and it now says hi, and that was successful. So sending text messages is very, very easy from track accuracy, and also seeing where they are. But one of the key things is the emergency. So if I push and hold the emergency button now, the emergency is set up to be an alerting emergency, in other words, noisy. And that's now gone into an emergency mode. The emergency now has come up on the screen and we have an emergency. And if you also notice, the screen has now shifted and immediately centered the radio that's in emergency mode. So we can see that it's radio 3. Radio 3 here is being displayed as on the roller shutter doors. And we can click to acknowledge the alarm, dispose of that one. And there we found someone really quickly. So the way that you would possibly do that would be from your phone, because the same application works equally well from your phone, is when you hear an emergency come on the radio, anyone can then either call dispatch, who will tell you where they are, or use your phone to instantly find them. With the most important thing, the emergency, taken care of, we can see what else we can do. And some of the other things that are really useful are being able to set points of interest, measuring a distance, and creating a geofence. Now, geofences are very simply created, and you can literally create a geofence around an area that you wish to, and then when someone enters that fence or leaves that fence, you will actually see it. So we get to name it, which is BSS. And we can decide if it's on entry, on exit, that is. So now, every time someone arrives at this building, we will get an indication that they have arrived and an indication that they have left when they cross this border, which is a GPS-based geofence. Quite often, it's useful to follow a radio, so we can actually have a radio that we follow. When you're following a radio, it means that the map will automatically center on that radio as they move around during the day. So as if you've got someone who you just want to keep an eye on, then that's the easiest way to do that. Finding radios is very quick and simple. You have the ability on these little plus signs here to bring up a lot of different things. And typically a GPS request will get you the location of the radio if they're not appearing on the map, or you can center them on the map or follow them on the map. So we're now following radio 2. You are able to zoom in and zoom out on the map quite dramatically. So we can go back out. So if you've got a large area you're covering and people are driving around, but because you can have incidents zoomed in, then you can be quite tightly zoomed in. For instance, watching a building where people are moving around the building and then something off map occurs, you immediately get dragged across to that. Configuration of the system is also very, very simple, and we can quickly just bring up the configurator. And you can see here that we are connected via a serial cable to the base station 1 on COM port 3, and that's really all you have to do is just tell it what it is. We do need to tell it the protocol of the radio that we're using. In this case, it's KENWOOD DMR, which status messages will be interpreted as emergency. We can connect to a cellular network. Web clients, we've got a couple of people on here. We've got Steve and James, who are both able to access via the web. These are ones that have got a lot of processing going on in them, and typically they're for monitoring the system. Fleets, we have one fleet. It's the main fleet, and fleets are mainly used to separate groups of radios. So you might have a fleet for security, for maintenance, this sort of thing, or you may have one main fleet which covers everyone. Devices, these are where the radios are added. Now, a radio can be GPS, indoor tracking, or both. And in this case, they are both. And you can identify the user here, and that's really all you need to do. The various status messaging is here, so as that will be displayed when calls come in. You need to do something with the messages that are here. So email is very simply set up, and email users are set up here. Reports, equally as trivial. You can add a report, and it allows you to add the report, daily summary report, or list is available for lots of different reports. For instance, geofence alert. All I've got to do is click that, say which email recipients it needs to go to, and that's it, done. Miscellaneous is various other bits that don't fit in the rest of it, but that is all there is to setting this up. Very, very quick, very, very simple. It all runs off a server, and you can see the server service is here. Licensing allows you to add to the system easily, to add extra units. The simplicity of operating a Trackuracy is quite amazing. It will only take a few minutes to get it set up and to train people how to use it. There may be more of a learning curve of the overall system. However, once in and running, it is very, very simple to maintain. So that really covers how simple Trackuracy is. One of the important things to remember is that with these little beacons, they do have batteries in them, and they will need replacing about every year. The official life is 2 years, so therefore if you have a maintenance contract with them and you're replacing them every year, that's ideal. Extra revenue stream for you. The radios have to be NX3000s currently. PC is whatever you want it to use, and really that's all you need to know about Trackuracy. If you would like further information regarding what I've said in this video, then please contact KENWOOD.